It wasn't me. Jon Moxley breaks silence on Mystery Man backstage WWE Raw. Jon Moxley just went on record, looked directly into the camera, and told the entire wrestling world it wasn't me regarding the mystery attacker who's been terrorizing WWE Raw for the past 3 weeks, and I'm calling complete garbage on that statement. You're telling me that the most violent, unpredictable, deathmatch-obsessed wrestler in the business, the guy who literally built his post-WWE career on showing up uninvited and causing absolute chaos wherever he goes, had nothing to do with the masked figure who's been taking out top WWE stars with brutal precision and leaving cryptic messages that sound exactly like something Moxley would say? Give me a break. This denial is either the worst lie in wrestling history or WWE is setting up something so twisted and controversial that it's going to completely redefine what we thought we knew about the Forbidden Door and cross-promotional warfare. And I'm about to break down exactly why Jon Moxley's denial doesn't add up, why the evidence points directly at him despite his protests, and what this could mean for the biggest invasion angle wrestling has seen in decades. Let me take you back to where this insanity started because the timeline is absolutely crucial here. 3 weeks ago on Monday Night Raw, Drew McIntyre was in the middle of a backstage interview when the lights suddenly cut out. When they came back on maybe 5 seconds later, Drew was laid out unconscious with a steel chair bent around his body and a note left on his chest that simply read, "The violence is coming home." WWE played it off as some kind of random attack. Security was investigating, but nobody could identify who did it because all the backstage cameras mysteriously malfunctioned during those crucial seconds. Week 2, it happened again. This time the victim was Damian Priest, who was walking to his car in the parking garage after the show. Same pattern, lights flickered, cameras glitched out, and when everything came back online, Priest was down and there was another note, this one saying "You forgot where you came from." The handwriting matched the first note. WWE went into full investigation mode, brought in extra security, had people reviewing footage frame by frame, but somehow this attacker was always one step ahead, always knew exactly where the blind spots were, always struck with surgical precision. Then last Monday, the most brazen attack yet. Seth Rollins was in the ring cutting a promo about being the standard bearer of WWE, about how nobody from outside the company could match his level, when suddenly the arena went pitch black. The crowd was going insane, phones out recording everything, and when the lights came up, there was a masked figure standing on the entrance ramp. Not in the ring with Seth, just standing there, watching. The figure was wearing all black, face completely covered, and before security could react, they disappeared into the crowd. But they left something behind, a third note projected on the Titantron that said, "I'm already inside." The internet immediately exploded with speculation. Everyone had theories about who the mystery attacker could be. Some people thought it was Bray Wyatt's legacy coming back to haunt WWE through Uncle Howdy. Others speculated it might be someone from NXT making a statement about being called up. But the theory that gained the most traction, the one that had wrestling Twitter absolutely losing their minds, was that this had to be Jon Moxley orchestrating some kind of AEW invasion, potentially setting up the biggest Forbidden Door angle we've ever seen. Do you think Moxley is telling the truth, or is this all part of an elaborate work? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. And honestly, the evidence was compelling. Let's look at the facts objectively. Jon Moxley is currently in a position with AEW where his contract situation is reportedly flexible. Tony Khan has gone on record saying he gives Moxley more creative freedom than almost anyone else on the roster. The violence described in these attacks, the brutality of how these WWE stars were being taken out, that's Moxley's calling card. The man made his name in WWE as the lunatic fringe, but he truly found his identity in AEW and the independent scene by embracing that ultra-violent wrestling style that WWE never let him fully explore. The notes themselves read like Moxley manifestos. "The violence is coming home" sounds exactly like something he'd say about returning to WWE to remind them what they let walk away. "You forgot where you came from" could reference how WWE has sanitized wrestling, made it more corporate and safe, abandoning the edge and danger that built the company. "I'm already inside" is the most Moxley thing imaginable, the idea that he's infiltrated enemy territory and they can't stop him. Every single phrase aligned perfectly with Moxley's philosophy about wrestling and his well-documented frustrations with WWE's creative restrictions. Plus, consider the timing. AEW has been struggling in the ratings lately, losing ground to WWE in ways that have to be concerning for Tony Khan and the roster. What better way to generate massive buzz and potentially poach some of WWE's audience than by having your top star launch a guerrilla warfare campaign against the competition? It's provocative, it's newsworthy, and it plays into the real-life tension between the two companies that fans are obsessed with. From a business perspective, it made perfect sense for this to be Moxley. Then yesterday, everything changed. Jon Moxley appeared on AEW Dynamite, and during a backstage segment, he was confronted by Renee Paquette about the rumors. Renee asked him point blank if he had anything to do with what's been happening on WWE Raw. And Moxley, with that intense stare he does, said very clearly, "It wasn't me. I don't know who's doing this, but they're trying to make it look like me, and I'm not playing that game. If I wanted to go to war with WWE, you'd know it. "This ain't my style." The way he delivered that denial was interesting because Moxley isn't known for lying in interviews. When he has a problem with someone or something, he says it directly. He's called out WWE by name multiple times since leaving. He's been brutally honest about his hatred for their creative process and medical protocols. So for him to deny this so definitively feels significant. But here's why I'm not buying it, and why thousands of fans aren't buying it either. First, look at the specific wording. "This ain't my style." What does that mean exactly? Moxley has literally competed in death matches where he's been thrown through barbed wire and light tubes. He's attacked people from behind before. He's used mind games and psychological warfare throughout his career. So what specifically about these attacks isn't his style? The notes? The theatrical presentation? That seems like a weird distinction to make unless he's splitting hairs about the execution rather than denying involvement altogether. What was your favorite Jon Moxley moment in AEW? Let me know below. Second, the "you'd know it" comment is interesting because it could be interpreted multiple ways. Does he mean we'd know it because he'd announce it publicly beforehand? Or does he mean we'd know it because the attacks would be even more violent and obvious? That statement doesn't actually eliminate him as a suspect, it just suggests that if he were doing it, he'd approach it differently. That's not a denial, that's a critique of someone else's methodology. Third, and this is crucial, Moxley said, "They're trying to make it look like me." That phrasing implies he knows someone is deliberately framing him, which raises the question, how would he know that unless he has inside information about who's really behind this? If Moxley is completely uninvolved and just hearing about this through wrestling news sites like the rest of us, why would he be so certain that someone is specifically trying to frame him rather than just coincidentally doing things that match his style? The conspiracy theories are now multiplying exponentially. Some fans think Moxley is lying to protect a bigger angle that hasn't been revealed yet. Others believe he's genuinely innocent and someone in WWE is using his reputation to work both companies into a shoot. There's a faction of fans who think this is all leading to a massive storyline at the next major pay-per-view where the mystery is revealed. And then there are the people who think WWE is doing this entire angle to make AEW and Moxley look bad without any actual intention of bringing him back. Let's examine each scenario because the implications are wild. If Moxley is lying and this is all building toward an actual AEW invasion of WWE Raw, we're talking about potentially the biggest angle in wrestling since the NWO. Imagine if next Monday, that masked figure is revealed to be Moxley, and suddenly half the AEW roster shows up on WWE programming. The legal implications alone would be insane. WWE would almost certainly sue for contract tampering and breach of agreement. But from a pure wrestling storytelling perspective, that would be absolutely nuclear, the kind of moment that transcends wrestling and becomes mainstream news. If Moxley is telling the truth and someone is framing him, then who benefits from that? Who would want to create chaos between WWE and AEW while specifically making Moxley look like the culprit? The most logical answer is someone who has a grudge against both Moxley and WWE. That list isn't particularly long. Maybe it's someone Moxley screwed over in AEW who wants revenge. Maybe it's a former WWE star who blames both companies for their career failures. Or maybe, and this is where it gets really interesting, it's someone who's trying to start a war between WWE and AEW because they profit from the chaos. The frame job theory opens up even more questions. If someone is deliberately trying to make this look like Moxley's work, they'd need extensive knowledge of his character, his promos, his philosophy about wrestling. They'd need to know him well enough to mimic his voice and style in those notes. That suggests someone who's worked closely with Moxley, someone who understands his psychology and can replicate it convincingly. Is it a former Shield member? Is it someone from his early FCW days? The suspect pool is smaller than you'd think when you apply that filter. Here's a wild one, what if it's Dean Ambrose coming back? Not Jon Moxley the AEW star, but Dean Ambrose the character that WWE still owns the rights to. What if WWE is bringing back that persona, either with Moxley's secret approval or as a way to compete with his AEW success? That would explain why the attacks feel like Moxley but also why he can honestly say it wasn't me because technically he's not performing as Dean Ambrose anymore. That's a legal loophole that could allow for the craziest return in wrestling history. Who do you think is actually behind these attacks? Give me your top 3 suspects in the comments right now. Let's talk about what WWE has said officially because their response has been deliberately vague. Adam Pearce gave a statement saying they're taking these attacks seriously and have increased security measures. Triple H was asked about it in an interview and said they're handling it internally. Nobody from WWE has mentioned Jon Moxley by name or acknowledged the speculation about AEW involvement. That silence is deafening because WWE usually jumps at the chance to work themselves into storylines and blur reality with fiction. The fact that they're not even hinting at Moxley suggests either they're planning something massive or they genuinely don't know who's behind it. The legal implications of this situation are fascinating. If this is an unauthorized invasion by Moxley or any AEW talent, WWE has grounds for major lawsuits. But if it's WWE creating an angle that deliberately invokes Jon Moxley's name and likeness without his permission, then AEW and Moxley could potentially sue WWE. Both companies are playing with fire here, which makes me think there has to be some kind of understanding or agreement behind the scenes that we're not aware of. Otherwise, the legal teams would have shut this down immediately. There's also the possibility that this is all completely organic, that some rogue wrestler saw an opportunity to generate buzz by creating this mystery and is now watching both companies scramble to figure out what's happening. That would be incredibly risky from a career perspective because whoever is behind the mask is potentially burning bridges with both major companies. But it would also be the kind of bold, chaotic move that could make someone's career if they play it right. The reaction from other AEW wrestlers has been interesting too. Kenny Omega posted a cryptic tweet that just said "chaos is a ladder" with an eyes emoji. Chris Jericho did a podcast where he refused to discuss the situation but kept smirking whenever it was brought up. The Young Bucks changed their Twitter bio to include "We know nothing about WWE attacks, stop asking." That last one especially feels like they're enjoying the chaos and speculation even if they're not directly involved. Meanwhile, WWE wrestlers have been mostly silent, which is unusual. Normally when there's a major storyline developing, everyone wants to get their take on social media to increase engagement. But about this mystery attacker situation? Radio silence from almost everyone except the victims themselves. Drew McIntyre posted a photo of his injuries with the caption, "Whoever you are, I'm coming for you." Seth Rollins tweeted, "The truth will reveal itself at the right time." Damian Priest hasn't said anything publicly, which some people are reading as suspicious. The production quality of these attacks is also worth analyzing. The way the lights cut out at exactly the right moments, the camera glitches that are perfectly timed, the placement of the notes in locations where they'll be found immediately but not before the attacker escapes, all of this requires inside knowledge of WWE's production schedule and technical setup. That means either WWE is orchestrating this themselves, or the attacker has help from someone currently employed by WWE. There's no way someone could pull off 3 consecutive attacks with this level of precision without inside assistance. Think about it, WWE has some of the most sophisticated security and production systems in live entertainment. They have cameras everywhere, security personnel at every entrance and exit, and strict protocols for who can access certain areas. For someone to repeatedly bypass all of that while also knowing exactly when and where to strike for maximum impact? That requires intimate knowledge of WWE's operations. Which brings us back to the possibility that this is someone who used to work for WWE, or someone who currently does and is working as an inside agent for the attacker. Do you think there's a mole inside WWE helping the attacker? Yes or no in the comments. The masked figure's physical appearance has been analyzed frame by fans with too much time on their hands. Height estimates put them somewhere between 5'10" and 6'1". Build appears athletic but not overly muscular. Movement style in the brief footage we have shows someone comfortable in a wrestling ring environment, with good spatial awareness and quick reflexes. All of this could match Moxley, but it could also match dozens of other wrestlers currently on various rosters. The mask and baggy clothing are specifically designed to obscure identifying features, which is smart if you're trying to maintain the mystery but also makes definitive identification impossible. Here's what I think is really happening, and this is pure speculation based on connecting dots that may not be meant to connect. I think Jon Moxley is telling the truth about not being directly involved in the attacks themselves, but I think he knows more than he's saying. I think someone approached him with this idea, maybe even got his blessing to use his aesthetic and philosophy, and now he's playing dumb publicly while privately enjoying the chaos it's causing. That would allow him to honestly say, "It wasn't me," while still being adjacent to the situation. The alternative theory that's gaining traction is that this is leading to a major debut of someone who's been off television for a while. Maybe it's Sami Zayn returning with a new dark character. Maybe it's Finn Balor embracing the demon full-time. Maybe it's someone from NXT making a shockingly violent main roster debut. The notes could be breadcrumbs leading to a character reveal rather than exposing an actual invader from another company. That would be safer legally and potentially more satisfying from a storytelling perspective. What's frustrating is that WWE has trained us to expect disappointment with these mystery angles. Remember the anonymous Raw general manager that turned out to be Hornswoggle? Remember the Who Attacked Hideo Itami storyline that never got resolved? WWE has a terrible track record with whodunit storylines, often building intrigue they can't pay off satisfactorily. So while we're all invested in finding out who's behind these attacks, there's a legitimate concern that the reveal will be anticlimactic or make no sense. The best case scenario is that this is leading to a genuinely shocking return or debut that makes all the speculation worth it. Imagine if the mask comes off and it's someone like Kenta, Sami Callihan, or another indie darling who's never been in WWE before. That would justify the secrecy and the elaborate presentation. Worst case scenario is that it's someone random, the storyline gets dropped, or the reveal happens on a random episode of Main Event that nobody watches. What we do know for certain is that Jon Moxley's denial has only intensified the speculation rather than calming it down. That's either terrible crisis management or brilliant work, depending on whether there's an actual payoff coming. Moxley benefits from the attention either way. His name is being mentioned constantly in connection with WWE's biggest mystery angle, which raises his profile even if he's not involved. AEW benefits from the Forbidden Door speculation because it makes them seem like a legitimate threat to WWE's dominance. And WWE benefits from having everyone talking about Raw and tuning in to see if more attacks happen. Who do you want it to be when the mask finally comes off? Dream scenario, give me your answer. The next few weeks are going to be critical. If another attack happens after Moxley's denial, that either proves he was lying or confirms someone is framing him. If the attacks stop completely, that might suggest Moxley was involved in his public denial as WWE's way of quietly ending the angle before legal issues arise. If the attacks escalate and become even more violent, that could mean we're building to a major reveal at the next pay-per-view. Every possible direction is still on the table, which is both exciting and frustrating. I want to know what you think is really going on here. Do you believe Jon Moxley when he says it wasn't him? Do you think this is building to an AEW invasion or a major WWE return? Who's your number one suspect for who's under that mask? Drop all your theories in the comments below because this is the most fun mystery angle we've had in years and I want to hear every crazy idea you have. Smash that like button if you're as obsessed with this story as I am, share this video with everyone in your wrestling group chats, and subscribe to Wrestling Newsletter because we are going to be covering every single development of this storyline until that mask comes off and we finally get answers. This is either going to be legendary or disastrous, and I'll be here documenting every moment.